Sometimes, love makes us believe that the more we give, the more we'll be valued. We pour ourselves into our families, our friendships, our relationships, thinking that if we just show up enough, if we just give enough, if we just care enough, we'll finally feel seen. We'll finally be enough. But what happens when all the giving doesn't lead to connection, but to resentment? When you've bent over backwards for years, and the one moment you need someone, all you hear is silence? Welcome back to Soft Truths. I'm Grace, and today we're exploring something that's both deeply personal and heartbreakingly common: the quiet ache of being the caregiver, the strong one, the reliable one, until the weight becomes too much to carry. This episode is for anyone who has ever felt invisible in their own family, who has given their weekends, their money, their emotional energy, and still been told, directly or indirectly, that it wasn't enough. You were too much or not enough, or both at the same time. We'll talk about what it means to be the one who always shows up until one day you don't, because you can't, because the tank is empty and no one noticed. We'll unpack the cost of that kind of invisible labor, and we'll talk about what it looks like to finally draw a line. Not out of bitterness, but out of love. Love for yourself. So if you've ever felt like the glue that holds everyone together but no one checks if you're cracking, this episode is for you. Let's talk about what happens when giving everything still isn't enough and how to start choosing you. I remember the first time I realized I wasn't okay, not in a dramatic, movie scene kind of way. It happened on a Thursday morning, around 7:15 a.m. I was standing in the kitchen, waiting for the coffee to brew, staring at the microwave clock like I always did before work. And suddenly, my body just froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I couldn't remember why I was doing any of it. It wasn't burnout. Burnout implies you were on fire once. No, this was emptiness. A quiet, hollow kind. The kind you don't notice until everything around you goes still. I had spent the last 15 years being the dependable one, the oldest daughter, the helper, the one who remembered birthdays, made soup when someone got sick, organized baby showers, and stayed on the phone at 2 a.m. when my brother's girlfriend left him. I sent money home when dad's hours got cut, flew across the country for mom's surgery, and took in my cousin for 6 months after she lost her job. And I never said no, because that's what you do for family, right? That's what I believed. For a long time, it gave me purpose, and maybe, if I'm being honest, a sense of control. If I could be the one holding everything together, I wouldn't have to face the cracks in my own life. But the cracks came anyway. I started waking up tired, not physically, emotionally, like my heart had jet lag. I'd lie in bed and think, if I disappeared, who would even notice aside from the missed favors and unanswered texts? That thought scared me, because it felt true. It all came to a head last year when I needed surgery. Nothing major, a laparoscopic procedure to remove a benign growth. The doctor said it was routine. 2 weeks of recovery, maybe 3. I thought, finally, I get to slow down. Maybe this is the universe forcing me to rest. I called my mom and told her. I didn't ask for help outright, but I hoped she'd offer. She didn't. Oh no, she said. That's so inconvenient. I already promised I'd go with Aunt Linda to that wedding in Florida. Can you reschedule? My throat went dry. They already scheduled it. Well, you're strong. You'll manage. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loud, not violent, just final. I tried not to make it a big deal. I hired someone to help me the first few days after surgery, ordered groceries online, took my pain meds, slept, tried not to cry. And yet, for the first time in my adult life, I truly felt alone. Not because I didn't have people, but because the people I had didn't see me, not really. After I recovered, something shifted. I stopped replying so fast to texts. I didn't volunteer to host Thanksgiving. I skipped my cousin's gender reveal party and didn't even feel guilty about it. And the silence was deafening. No one called to check on me, No one said, "Hey, how are you really doing?" Instead, I got passive-aggressive messages like, "We missed your casserole," or "You used to be more available." It was wild to realize how much of my identity had been built around being useful. And the minute I wasn't, I became invisible. That's when I started therapy. The first session felt awkward. I rambled. I cried. I minimized everything, like so many of us do. It's not a big deal, I'm tired, I guess. But the therapist didn't look away. She just said, "Sounds like you've been carrying a lot of weight, alone, for a long time." And I broke. Because she saw it. The thing no one else noticed. The weight. Therapy became my weekly lifeline. I started unpacking why I always felt responsible for everyone else's happiness. Why I thought saying no meant I was selfish. Why I equated being needed with being loved. Spoiler, it had a lot to do with childhood. Growing up, emotions weren't safe in my house. My mom was anxious and overwhelmed. My dad was distant. I learned early that if I could anticipate what people needed before they asked, I could avoid chaos. I became a master of peacekeeping, a little emotional ninja. But now, as an adult, that same skill set was slowly killing me. I was so used to checking everyone else's emotional temperature that I'd never learned to ask myself what I wanted. What did I like to do on weekends if I wasn't hosting or helping or fixing someone else's crisis? What did rest look like, not as a reward for being useful, but as a right? It took months to begin reclaiming my own voice. One of the biggest turning points came the day I said no to my sister. She called, frantic, because her babysitter had canceled, and she needed someone to watch her kids last minute. I love my nieces, they're the light of my life, but I had just finished a 12-hour shift, and I had a migraine that felt like someone was jackhammering behind my eyes. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry, I can't help today. I'm not feeling well." She paused, then said, "Wow, okay, you've really changed." And I felt it again, that sting of guilt, that fear of being too much or not enough. But I let the silence sit. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. I just said, "I hope you figure it out." I hung up and cried. Not because I was sad, but because that tiny boundary felt like climbing a mountain. And I had done it. That was the moment I realized. Healing doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like guilt. Like grief. Like letting go of who you were to become who you're meant to be. The months that followed were a strange mix of mourning and freedom. I stopped being the default host. I said no more often. I spent weekends doing things just for me. Painting, walking in the park, sitting at coffee shops with no agenda. And slowly, the loneliness was replaced by clarity. I started to notice who checked in when I wasn't available to serve. Who still showed up when I had nothing to offer but my presence. The list was smaller than I hoped, but it was real. I also began reconnecting with parts of myself I had long abandoned. My love of poetry, my curiosity about photography, my desire to travel without a packed itinerary or an obligation to make it useful. I went to a cabin alone for 3 days. No Wi-Fi, no schedule, just me, a journal, and the sound of wind through the trees. I wrote in big letters across one page, "I am not just what I give. I am someone worth keeping, even when I am not useful." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Not everyone understood my transformation. Some friends drifted away. Some family members grew distant. One aunt even called me selfish for missing a birthday dinner. But I realized, the people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always call your healing selfish. And that's okay. Let them. Because something beautiful happens when you stop pouring from an empty cup, you start filling your own life with color again. You start choosing what you say yes to, not out of guilt, but out of joy. You stop living as a background character in your own story. So here I am now, not fixed, not perfect, but freer. I still struggle. The urge to fix, to please, to prove my worth through giving it runs deep. But now I catch myself. I ask, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? I check in with my own needs. I say no when I need rest. I say yes when something feels aligned, not out of obligation, but because it lights me up. And guess what? My world didn't collapse. It actually got quieter and softer. Just like this podcast. There's a quiet kind of heartbreak that comes from realizing the people you've given everything to may never truly see you. It's not the kind of pain that shouts, it whispers, in all the empty spaces where love should have been returned. But here's the truth. Your worth was never meant to be measured by how useful you are to others. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that love is something we earn through service, sacrifice, silence. We were told that to be good is to be accommodating, agreeable, selfless to the point of exhaustion. And if we were really good, really loving, we wouldn't need anything in return. But that's not love. That's erasure. True love, the kind that heals, is reciprocal. It flows both ways. It allows space for your needs, your voice, your rest. And it doesn't disappear the moment you stop performing. Healing begins when we start telling the truth to ourselves and then to others. The truth that we're tired. The truth that we're allowed to change. The truth that we deserve. Relationships that hold us as carefully as we hold others. You are not selfish for drawing a boundary. You are not cruel for saying no. You are not broken for wanting to be loved, not just needed. Sometimes healing means stepping away from the roles you were assigned, the fixer, the giver, the strong one, and learning how to just be, fully human, messy, deserving. And yes, it might cost you something. It might cost you people who only saw you as a resource, not a person. But what you gain is far more powerful: your peace, your self-respect, your freedom. So if you're in that space right now, standing at the edge of who you were and who you're becoming, take the step. Choose yourself. Again and again. Because you don't need to give everything to be worthy. You already are. Thank you for being here today. If this episode stirred something inside you, a memory, a wound, a realization, know that you're not alone. So many of us were raised to believe that love must be earned through sacrifice. But I want you to remember this. Your value does not depend on how much you give. You are not loved more when you disappear into others. You are not loved less when you choose yourself. Healing isn't about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming whole. It's about saying, "This is who I am, not what I do for you." Maybe today is the day you start saying yes to yourself. Thank you for listening to Soft Truths. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you could like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear these words. This podcast is a space where we speak the quiet truths, the ones that live under the surface, and make room for softer, stronger lives. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You deserve love that includes you, not just what you give away.